And there goes the creepy disembodied voice to let you know. So hello everybody, a really warm welcome to you all on this slightly chilly in London, at least Thursday, for our Spektrix training webinar on event setup. With me today is Kyle, who's one of our support and training consultants, and they're going to be taking you, he'll be taking you through the session today. I'll let Kyle introduce himself in a second after I've just taken you through a few points. So first off, as I said, this session is being recorded and we're going to share it with you afterwards, which means you don't have to worry about like writing everything down or missing anything, because you can watch it back again and again and again and again at your leisure. The training session is going to last a maximum of 2 hours, and that includes time for questions. If you do have any questions along the way, please submit them using the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screens. You'll see there's also a chat function as well. If you could put questions in the Q&A, and you can also use the chat function on your screen if you'd like to say hello or tell everybody here a story. I mean, that could be a bedtime story. It could be a story of success at your organization. It could just be saying hi and wishing people well. I'll be monitoring the Q&A as well, and as we go along, we'll do our best to answer them either as we're going, or we'll do so at the end. And along with the video we're going to send you, we'll also send you links to all of the support centre articles relevant to this session. And I just realised I didn't introduce myself, but there's my face. I'm Jack Evans. I'm a support and training consultant as well. So before I hand over to Kyle, I just wanted to quickly mention the Support Centre as a reminder of the resources that are available to you 24/7. Essentially, the Support Centre is a compendium of articles and resources that are designed to help you get the most out of Spektrix. You'll find info there on everything from like how to set up an offer, info on the types of Spektrix reports you can use, troubleshooting a printer. You can also use the Support Centre as like your first port of call for any questions or queries you might have. So you can navigate to a particular area of the system or use the search bar at the top. And the website address for this is just support.spektrix.com. If you're not currently signed up to the Support Centre, you can sign up with your work email, so the one that's affiliated with your organisation, and you'll have access to all of our articles. But if you do sign up and you're having trouble seeing all the articles, do just give us a shout in the support training and consultancy team, and we will help you out. We've also got a page that's dedicated to our online group training. That's where we're going to regularly show any sessions we're doing covering the fundamentals of Spektrix, like this one today, but we've also got plenty of others, and they will be running sort of on a monthly basis. So do check back for updates on future sessions if there's any that you've missed and that you'd like to go and see, or any that you were so excited by you'd like to see it again. And as well as sending you all of the support articles that are relevant to this session, we're going to include a link to our action toolkit, which is essentially a collection of resources that's designed to help you get the most from your Spektrix. And the toolkit offers practical and strategic tips and suggestions, both for beginners and for more experienced users, from learning the basics to taking you through more in-depth reporting and multi-layer email automations, all of that good stuff. It's an interactive pack that allows you just to jump to the area most relevant to your needs with guidance on how to implement an action, along with an estimated timescale of how long it's going to take you to do said thing. Now I'm going to hand over to Kyle, who will who will say hello and will also introduce you to today's session. These are what we'll be covering there, and so we'll be going through setting up an event, understanding how price lists and pricing features in Spektrix work, understanding the process for creating seating plans and overlays, setting up funds and making them part of the purchase path, and setting up merchandise. So with that in mind, I'm going to just hand you over to the lovely Kyle.
Thanks, Jack, and good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm just going to share my screen with you all. So bear with me a sec while I head over there. There we go. So hopefully at this stage, you'll all be able to see an admin interface. And again, hopefully something you'll all be somewhat familiar with already, all being well. Bear with me just a sec there. I'm just going to move some bits over as well. So there, as we can see, we're going to cover some fundamentals in this morning's session. For some of you, this may be a refresher session. For others, it might be a complete introduction. So the session's, I suppose, being pitched somewhere, hopefully in between those two levels of experience. We are in the admin interface for this session here, so we'll be most of the stuff we'll be doing in today's session will be covered in this admin interface tab. And essentially, we'll be taking you through the building blocks of getting an event together in Spektrix. So adding an event in Spektrix is a really simple, really user-friendly process once you've got those kind of fundamental blocks in place. So we'll be kind of working along through these tabs as we go through the session. As you can see here, we land first of all in the event search tab, but for the first part of this session, we're going to be largely working in pricing here, and we'll be working sort of from left to right. So everything in the admin interface and most other interfaces in Spektrix is generally designed to work from left to right based on the kind of the most common functions you'll be using day to day. So as I mentioned, first of all, we're going to land in pricing first. And that first fundamental block of getting any event together is thinking about your pricing structure. So the first element of that will be our ticket types that we'll have in place. So what we would generally recommend as best practice when thinking about your ticket types you will use, we generally recommend to think of your ticket types as being your demographics. So as you can see in this list here, we've got an adult ticket, we've got child, and we've also specified that that's anyone under the age of 16. Senior citizen, we've gone with over 65 here. And with a student ticket, we might have something like, proof required as well. So we've got that extra add-on in the ticket name there. This might look a bit confusing at this moment in time, but this relates to supplementary events, which we'll look at later on as well there. So we will come back to that one. We've also got then down here some other ticket types as well. So comps, so a generic comp ticket and just another loose example, care assistant there as well. Now you might notice that these are in two separate boxes here. Those being web types just at the top here. And then underneath, we've also got this, what that we call normal types. So the way to think about those essentially is that your web types are any tickets that you want to have available to sell in both your sales interface as well as online. What we call normal types are any tickets that you would only want to restrict to selling in the sales interface only. So in this example here, our comp tickets. In terms of adding new tickets to your system, that can all be done just down here. So we just give it a name. So just call that Spektrix example for now. Here, so that's the only compulsory field on here as signaled by this red dash just here. We can assign an optional description as well to our ticket types as we're creating them. That's just an internal reference for yourself here. So you can just pop whatever you'd like to pop alongside that ticket in your description box here. At the point of creating a ticket, you can also specify whether you'd like that to be active or inactive as well. And we're going to have a look at that in just a moment here. You can also specify the delivery methods you'd like to make available for it as well. You'll notice here that care of box office is grayed out, and that's because we've set that to be our always available option just here. So with your ticket types in Spektrix, you've always got to have at least one delivery method that is set to always available when you're selling your tickets. The most common example of that would be care of box office. Post and print at home or e-tickets generally won't be. And you can see here as well, print at home at the moment, we can't specify as always available, just care of box office or post. At the point of creating a ticket as well, you can also specify whether you'd like that to be locked off, so only available to sell through a sales interface admin user. So once we're ready to add, we can just then pop that on there, and we can now see that appears in our web type list because we created it as a web type. If you have created a ticket and popped it in the wrong section, or if at any time you need to move your ticket types between categories, you can do so just by clicking these arrows here. And as you can see now, Spektrix example ticket moves into normal types. Likewise, we can bump that back up there as well. At any time, if you need to edit any values on your tickets as well, so using this example here, we click on the edit pencil, we can go in and rename it. We can add on any extra information on the description box or remove information altogether. We can also specify if we'd like that to be inactive or active, depending on what option was populated. And again, with that lock that we saw when we're creating it, we can also change that setting there as well. So once we're happy with that, we can click save. I've just made this ticket type inactive now. So once I save that, we'll notice it now disappears from the list. If we click on view inactive ticket types here, we can see anything that we've previously made inactive. So in this demo system, you can see quite a long list there of previous example tickets we've set up and what have you. Attributes is something that we'll see in various parts of event setup as well. Attributes effectively being custom bits of information that you can also add on to various concepts in your system. So ticket types being one. We'll have a look at some event and instance level attributes shortly as well, but they can exist against customers, memberships, merchandise, all sorts of areas in Spektrix. But yeah, effectively an attribute is just an extra level of custom information that you'd like to attach to something in Spektrix. So that's an overview of creating our ticket types there. The next thing to just show you here as well is this web availability box here. It gives you a brief description as well there. So that just to say when you'd like to set delivery methods to become unavailable for website users in the amount of time ahead of an event. Also, something we introduced fairly recently was the functionality to add negative numbers as well, which can be useful in the context of doing streaming events. So if your streaming event date is, say on the 30th of November, for example, but you'll be making that available for X number of days after, you can use minus numbers to ensure customers can still get tickets for that as well. So if we need to change any values here, if I just go into edit, we can then configure this as we'd like. So I mentioned before when I was creating that example ticket type about care of box office being grayed out, and just to recap on that, that's because that's been set to always available here. Post is the only other option that you can set to always available at the moment. It's very rare. I don't think I've come across many, if any, venues that really use that option at the moment, but you can do if needs be. Otherwise, what we can see here is that post is set to only be available up to 7 days ahead of an event. After that time, a customer will then be prompted to select care of box office or to print it at home, or have an e-ticket delivered to them is probably another way of phrasing that as well. Here as well, this box suppress if possible has been ticked for care of box office. So again, this won't become available until we've hit this window here for post. So up until then, it will steer people to post and print at home. Once we get to this cutoff point, care of box office will also become available. So we'll use these tickets here to inform our price lists that we'll come to shortly. But before we get a price list together, the next thing we need to think about is our price bands. So we're going to move over to this next tab along here now. Price bands in Spektrix effectively being a means of grouping your different price areas together on a seating plan. Where we've got multiple price bands here, we'll see this, and also all these colours here. We'll hopefully see that sort of come into context when we look at putting a reserved seating plan together shortly. And in terms of, again, naming conventions in Spektrix for your price bands, we would usually recommend this format here. You might have to vary that slightly for your own venues, and for the purposes of today's session, we'll stick with this format as well. So we've just got band A, band B, band C, etc., etc. If we do need to add another price band on there, so might as well just carry on with that same format there. Let's go with band K if it's not already on the system. So as we saw with adding a ticket type, very similar sort of process. We just give it a name. We can also assign an optional description to it if needs be as well. And also with our price bands, we can set a color. So if I just pick a random color off this chart here, Also, again, at the point of creation, you can specify whether you'd like that to be active or inactive. Presumably, when you're creating these things, you'll probably be making them active at the point of creation, but you have got that flexibility there if you need to use it. So once I click add, we can now see that appears in the list here, and it'll just follow alphabetically down there. Again, similar to what we saw with ticket types, once we've created it, we can always go back in and edit. We can rename, we can adjust the description, change the color in this case, and also make that inactive and save changes. And again, if you've got any attributes set up in your system for price bands, these can also be added on there as well. And again, up in this top right hand corner, we can see by clicking that box, our list of price bands that have been made inactive will appear here. So that's all we need to really look at in terms of price bands before we move over now to price lists. So once you've got your ticket types and your price bands in order, we can then put these together into a price list, and a price list effectively being a matrix of those two elements coming together. And hopefully now this is where we'll see the price bands coming into play a little bit more as well. So just to come out of this again for a second, we can see here I've got some examples, again, champagne appearing again, and hopefully that will make sense a bit further down the line in this session as well. But again, examples here of what we would recommend for your naming conventions for your price lists. We would usually say to be as clear as you possibly can in the naming of it. One, just for reference further down the line, if you've got sort of generic price lists that you're able to apply to multiple events, it can be handy for that as well. So you can see at a glance roughly what that price list will contain here. So in this example, we've got a price list Monday to Thursday, price bands A to C, and then the price range as well. There might be a slight typo there. Again, here we've got a weekend price list as well, where price go from price bands A to C, and then the price range there. So yeah, where possible, it's always good to have some good generic price structures in place. Again, that might not always be possible, so you might have to have price lists that are specific to various shows. This again is just some examples that we're covering. So when you click add here, a price grid will appear. So we can see down the side all your active ticket types and all your active price bands. So we just need to give that a name, and then we can start assigning prices along here. I've got some ready to go examples, so I'll just work within these just to show you here for now. So we can see in this price list here, our Monday to Thursday price list, that in price band A, our tickets are more expensive. So we can see for our adult ticket, it's £30, child 26, comp naturally would be 0. And for a senior citizen, we're also charging 26 as well. For a student ticket, we might also want to add on some prices as well. So price band B, we start to get a bit cheaper. So £25, 22 for children, and £22 for senior citizens. We might want to say £22.50 for a student ticket there as well. And then finally, we're just going to have 3 price bands in this particular list. We can see there we're now down to £20, 18, and then again, we might want to nudge that down to £17.50. You'll also notice here that we've got these 2 columns alongside each of our ticket types in each price band as well. And this key down at the bottom just tells you that the pink column is the ticket that you'd like to set as your sales interface default, and likewise the blue column being the default ticket for the website as well. So what that means in practice is when a customer selects a seat off the seating plan for a reserved event, what that'll effectively do when they click add to basket, by default in these options here, it's always going to add the adult ticket to the basket. You might want to change that and make that child ticket, just in for example's sake here, but probably most commonly day to day it'll look something like that. And again, most of the time as well, these options will probably be both the same, but you have got flexibility there if needs be to mix that up between the sales channels that you're using as well. You'll also notice say, for example, here with the comp ticket, that it's only got the one checkbox available. And that's because if you recall, when we looked at the ticket types earlier, these were only available to sell in the sales interface. Therefore, we've only got the option to have that as a sales interface default there. So that's an overview of putting a price list together. And as you can see, we can continue adding on to that in all the price bands that we've got active here if needs be. But we'll stick with that as it is for now. Again, we can see here in this example, so actually I've specified £30 there. Prices actually go up to 32, so I'm just going to rename that in this particular example. But in our weekend price list, the prices change ever so slightly and they get a bit more expensive. So £32 for our adult ticket, 27 and 20 in these other bands here. And again, for student tickets, we might want to make that just a little bit more expensive as well. Again, I'm just throwing some random numbers out there just for the purposes of today's session, but hopefully this will emulate something similar to what you might be doing day to day. There, so we can click save on that. So that's price list. So we can see there now we've got our ticket types and our price bands that we've looked at now coming together in our price list. So the next elements we then need to look at is ticket donations and ticket commissions. I'll take you through both these tabs. The logic that they both use works in a very similar way, but I'll show you around both of these anyway. So during your event setup, you can also create a ticket donation structure. So that is for each ticket that's added to the basket. You can also add on an optional donation for customers as well. So we can see here, once we click into it, we've already got an example here, £1 on every ticket. So if I just show you around that, we can see how this has been put together. So here, this is a global fixed value that's been applied for our ticket donation. So that meaning for every ticket that's added to the basket, £1 will also be suggested as a donation on top of each ticket. So 5 tickets, that's also £5 worth of donations added on there for each ticket. As well as making that a fixed value, you can also set that to be a percentage as well. So here, this has been set to 1%. You know, you can change that accordingly as well to a number that you think would be reasonable. You can also, though, so these are global values. So no matter the price, the ticket or the price band that's been added to the basket, it'll just assign that fixed value or percentage each time. If you do need to be a bit more flexible and sort of nuanced with that, you can also use these fields here. So a custom fixed value for each combination of sales channel, price band, and ticket type. And similarly, a custom percentage for each sales channel, price band, and ticket type. So if we have a look at this one for now, we can see another box becomes available here to customize that as well. So I'll just select that and click next, and then we can show you around here. So this here now brings up something that looks very similar to the price list that we just looked at. And what we can say here is, for example, if someone is adding an adult ticket in price band A, we would like to suggest a 50p donation on top of each ticket. In price band B, maybe that's going to be a 25p donation. Price band C, 10p. And we just keep working through that list accordingly. So it might just be the same rules for each ticket type there as well. There we go. So just for a couple of examples there, we can see now when an adult ticket or a senior citizen ticket is added in price bands A, B, and C, these suggested donations will be added on top. And the other thing to point out here as well is that that will be on counter sales. So if we wanted to vary that for the website, we might want to make that the same. We might want to make it a bit more expensive. We can really be, like I say, very kind of nuanced and very specific with this function here. And again, for the phone channel, we can change that as well. It might be that they're very similar rules across the board, but it's just to ensure you've got that flexibility there with that. Just cancel that to come out of there and go back in, and we'll keep that as our £1 fixed value. Just to show you around the custom percentage, very much the same rules when we click on customize, except instead of a value this time, we are assigning a percentage for each price band, ticket type, and sales channel here as well. So once you're happy with your ticket donation structure, say we'll stick with that one for now, we can then look at ticket commissions as well. As I mentioned, these work in very much a similar way, but I'll still just give you a quick tour around these as well, as there are some slight variations compared to ticket donations. So if I just click into this 50p commission one, so we can see here at this stage, very similar looking. We can do a fixed value. So in this case here, for every ticket that's added onto the into the basket, 50 pence will be applied as well. So £10 ticket, 50 pence will be added on top, making for a £10.50 total value for that ticket. We can also specify a percentage as well there. So you know, that might be 1%, for example. And as we've just seen with the ticket donations, we can also assign a custom structure as well. Again, the way that operates is in exactly the same way. So for each price band and ticket combination, as well as sales channel, you can vary that as needed. The only thing you'll also notice on ticket commissions that is slightly different to ticket donations is this wave criteria box here as well. So if I just click onto that there, we can then specify which customers we would like to include or exclude from having that particular commission applied. A good example to use here might be memberships. So anyone who has a membership, a Spektrix patron monthly membership, for example, they might be exempt from receiving that that particular ticket commission from their transaction there. So if the system recognizes they've got a membership, it won't apply that ticket. That being one example. You can do it based on all sorts of other functions though, so tags, attributes that a customer might have. Criteria groups is just, say, for example, rather than dragging down each individual membership, if it's going to apply to all members, then you can create a criteria group for all your members in Spektrix and then just drag them all down in one block using a criteria group as well. So that's the only exception that's slightly different to the ticket donations. Otherwise, it all works in very much the same way of a global value, global percentage, or custom fixed values and percentages for each combination of your sales channel, price band, and ticket type. So once we've got ticket commissions in place, the final element that we'll look at in this tab here is just the other commissions. So what we've got here is various elements such as payment commissions, delivery commissions, and transaction commissions. I believe also sometimes they are often referred to as like a basket commission there as well, these ones here. So just to take you around some of these here as well. So payment commissions based on the payment types that are being added to the basket. You can assign a payment commission. I think it's probably largely just going to be for card refund that most venues would be using now. I don't think these are really allowed to have payment commissions associated with them anymore. Let's say that the functionality is there though. But if we just click on edit, for example, on here, so we can see when we click on that we've got some boxes that become configurable here. So for card refund at the moment, 50 pence is going to be charged for each sales channel, phone, counter, and web. For your payment commissions as well, you'll just need to assign the tax code that's relevant to your organization. So in these cases here, we've got not registered. As we've just seen with ticket commissions as well, payment commissions, delivery commissions, and transaction commissions can all have wave criteria. So in very much the same way, if I just cancel that and then click wave criteria, we can see here that we can make certain customers exempt from that. So in this example here, Spektrix patron members don't have to pay any payment commissions. Those very same sort of rules apply across these other boxes as well. So we can see for delivery commissions, you've got your care of box office delivery, postal, print at home, and then you've also got similar options for merchandise there as well. So care of box office, postal, and print at home as well. We can see in here that care of box office, £1 is charged across the 3 sales channels. Postal delivery, that's, we want to set that to £2 there across the board. And print at home, there is no charge there as well. Some ways that you might want to think about using delivery commissions is to incentivize customers towards other delivery methods. So for example, if you want to try and encourage customers to use print at home or e-tickets, as it were, you might want to, as we can see here, say that there's no charge for e-tickets. Otherwise, for care of box office and post, you're going to be paying £2 extra on the transaction, or £1 extra in this case here. And again, those same sort of rules might apply for these elements here as well. As we've already seen as well, we can make certain customers exempt from that using waive criteria again. So drag and drop whoever we'd like to exclude from those commissions, and we just need to do that in the waive criteria alongside each of those there. The final one then is just here is the transaction commission. So that's just the kind of the extra commission that's added on top of the basket. So where we've seen with ticket commissions, that's an extra amount added per ticket. This would be a commission that's added on top of the basket. So if it's a £20 basket with a £2 transaction commission, that will take the transaction total to £22 from there. Again, we can just edit that per sales channel, as well as setting our waive criteria through the edit button there. Any rules that you set here as well are global, so these will apply across the board. So with ticket donations, ticket commissions, you can create various structures and assign those on an event basis. These rules here will be global and will apply to all events in your system. The final thing just to point out then at the bottom is the transaction commission rules as well. So you can also specify when you'd like a transaction commission to kick in. So there's some guides here alongside each of these headers, but just to sort of show you through this example, we can see here, if we click on edit, at the moment, transaction commission is only charged if there's tickets in the basket and if those tickets have value. So otherwise, for memberships, merchandise, donations, and gift vouchers, there's no transaction commission charged. But likewise, we can say as well, charge if any of those items are basket. So here, even if they're comp tickets, we're still going to charge £2 transaction commission. That's why we've got this one here, just to say, you know, as long as they've got value, we'll charge that on top. So you've got some flexibility there on scenarios where you would like that transaction commission to apply. Once you're happy with how that looks, you can then click save. And we can then start looking at the next element. There's one final tab here for agent commission structures, which we're not going to look at for this session. So it's kind of a bit more in depth that. So the next section we'll move on to from here is the seating tab. Contrary to what I said before about kind of working from left to right, I generally like to do this bit in the opposite direction and start first of all over at venues. So in Spektrix, we're going to, well, we've got two kind of key seating types that you can have in your system, reserved plans and unreserved plans. We'll create some instances that use both of those just so we can show you both of them in context as well. In terms of creating unreserved plans on your system, we're going to add one in a moment, but you can add as many of those as you like to your system, just using the add button down here. You can see we've already added a good handful in this particular demo system. For reserved seating plans, where you're choosing the seats off an overview, which I'm sure a lot of you will be kind of familiar with already, they have to be created by us, and you submit a seating plan request form for any new reserved seating plans that you'd like, or any kind of changes to reserved seating plans that can't be done through some of the options that we're going to look at shortly as well. I mentioned that there's two kind of main seating plan types that we've got in the system there, reserved and unreserved. There is one, again, slight exception to that, and that we can also create multi-area unreserved plans for you though. So if you've got sort of multiple unreserved areas that might have different price bands you'd need for them, we can create those for you on request in the same way as a reserved seating plan. If any of that's sort of anything that piques your interest or something that you might think you'd need further down the line, shoot us a line after this this session, and we'll be happy to sort of take you through those options as well from there. So I mentioned there that I'm going to start from right to left. Reason being is I'd just like to sort of establish the difference probably as well between venues and seating plans just at this stage as well. So when you're creating a seating plan, you'll need to assign it to a venue. So the way I generally sort of think about that is to say that your seating plan is your auditorium. The venue would be the actual physical building that those auditorium spaces might sit within. So we can add a venue first of all just over here. And we can see already we've got some various examples. So we've got Spektrix Theatre, for example, there. We can add a new one on top of that. So let's just call it the Spektrix Theatre, for example. There, so this is our our actual building. We can also assign an address to that as well if needs be. The name is the only compulsory field. Address is optional, but if you wanted to add that extra information on, you can do there. As we can see in this example, we've got Spektrix Theatre, Brazil Street, Manchester. We can do that. I also like to just sort of give a quick tour around lock types as well, because they'll form a part of our seating plan creation in a moment as well. So you can lock off seats in both your unreserved and your reserved seating plans as well. Again, some examples we've got here, and some common examples that you might have in your system might be things such as hearing loop locked seats, wheelchair locks, VIP, usher, technical seats, for example. You might lock off seats for promoters as well. This just being some, like I say, kind of fast and loose examples that we've popped on into our system already. In terms of adding any new lock types to your system, that's just done by clicking on the add button here. So we'll just go through that process quickly there. So for example, if I just call this new lock type for now, we assign a name to it. This is just an internal description underneath here. So again, just so you've got some internal reference of what that lock type is doing. Also, at the point of creation, as we've seen with various other elements so far, we can specify whether we'd like that to be active or inactive here. You can also specify whether you'd like these locks to be available for website users as well. And if you're locking off seats for agency sales, you can also use that tick box there. Example of where you might want to lock off seats for website users. A nice example would be if you're making access booking available online for customers. It might be anyone that has the relevant tag on their record can log onto their account and then choose that any seats that are locked off for wheelchair users, provided someone has the right tag on their record, they'll be available for those customers, and kind of prioritized for them to book. Anyone else that doesn't have the applicable tag won't be able to select those seats there. So that's one sort of use case for making a lock available for website users. Just underneath here as well, you can choose the seating plan icon. So we've got alphabet characters, and we've also got some other generic symbols underneath here that you can apply as well. We can also see underneath, so for example, just using that wheelchair lock example we looked at, we can also say here, display icon online if available for website users. So this is just to signify on the seating plan nice and clearly which seats are the wheelchair seats, so any wheelchair users can then spot those on the plan and select them accordingly. Underneath here, so you can just set some extra levels of security against the lock as well. So if a lock requires a password, you can set that underneath here. Otherwise, we can leave that unchecked. And then we've got some limits that we can set on the next tab here. So by default, here we go. If I just go back as well, sorry, and just set that there. There we go. So if a lock's made available online, you've got some extra options here on the limit. So use the default limit for the instance. So if your event has been set to only allow up to 10 tickets per customer per booking, it will allow them to book lock types as well. But you can also kind of restrict the number of locked seats that are sold per transaction there. So we might want to only limit, say, 2 wheelchair locks per customer per transaction, but you've got flexibility with that there as well. This checkbox as well here, so you can say in unreserved areas, you want to sell eligible customers those seats before the general allocation also. Moving on then, so the next tab is then customer eligibility. So in the example of this lock that we're looking at the moment, we might want to say only customers that have had that tag applied to their record are eligible to select those seats. Anyone else that doesn't have that tag will not be able to select that seat and progress with their transaction from there. So that might be an example of a lock type that we would set up in this case. We've already got some in place here as well. Just wanted to give you a quick tour around that process before moving on to getting a seating plan together. So first of all, I'll show you through the process of adding an unreserved seating plan to your system. As I mentioned before as well, you can create as many of those as you like, and that is done just by scrolling down to the bottom here and clicking add. So at this stage, it'll bring up a new unreserved seating plan form. So we can then just give that a name, and also underneath each box, it will give you some extra information on what each of those boxes is for. So this is just a unique name in your system. So let's call this Standard Theatre Unreserved, for example. And that's just for your internal name for that. Again, you can also assign a description for internal reference. You might want to give that a slightly nicer name on the website. So I can't think of one right now, so I'm just going to go with Standard Theatre Unreserved again. But you might have something a bit nice looking like the main Lyceum Theatre or something along those lines. This here then, so venue that we looked at first of all, that's just so then we can assign the building it actually belongs to here. So in this case, Spektrix Theatre. This is generally useful if you are working across multiple buildings, as I know some clients will be. That just means you can assign it to the right kind of building as such. And then also when we come to look at search results in your sales interface, it can help you filter them down that way as well. So your maximum capacity, so as it says underneath here, this is the absolute maximum you could ever seat in that space. So what we would normally recommend is setting this comfortably above the amount that you'd ever intend to sit in there. So for example, in this particular theatre, let's say it's 2,500. Generally speaking, we're probably only going to sell 2,000, so we can use masks to then set our availability of allocated seats there. So we've set the maximum capacity at 2,500. I've masked off 500 as sort of standard there, meaning that at the moment there's only 2,000 seats available to sell, but we've still got 500 kind of seats as a bit of wiggle room if we need to increase that for whatever reason. The reason we say to have that bit of breathing space and bit of wiggle room is because once you've set your maximum capacity, so here we set it to 2,500, once we save that plan, we can't go back in and increase that to 2,600 or more. So that's where masking can be useful in that context. So with an unreserved seating plan, you can only ever have one price band assigned to it. I'll just stick with price band A in this example. I mentioned before, we can create multi-area unreserved plans for you if you do need to have different sort of unreserved sections that might have different price bands applied. But as a general rule of thumb and especially when you're setting up your own seating plans, you'll only be able to add one price band to an unreserved plan. So moving down then to locks. So on this particular plan, let's say we're going to have 5 wheelchair seats there. We'll also have 5 technical seats locked off. Let's go with 5 house seats as well and 5 usher there. So at 5, 10, 15, 20 seats locked off. So what that now means is just going back up to our maximum capacity, 2,500. 500 have been masked. That's now taken us down to 2,000 general allocation seats. And then out of that, we've then masked off 20 of those. So that leaves us with 1,980 general allocation seats, with the remaining 20 being locked off and divvied out amongst these lock types here. So this is just the sort of the standard overlays that we're creating at this point for this particular seating plan. If we click add there, we can then go into that particular plan. It should appear at the bottom here, Standard Theatre Unreserved. If we then go into that, we can take a look over it as well. So looking into our layouts here, here we go. So in fact, I'll just take you back over to this tab first of all. So details, first of all, we can go in at any time here and rename that. We can also add a description or remove description, edit accordingly. And here we can also change the venue as well if needs be. Don't need to worry about that box in this particular example. Also, this will come into play on a reserved seating plan in a moment, as well as view from seats. So the next tab we're going to look at on an unreserved plan is our layouts. So we can see here our max capacity is set 2,500. We've got 500 masked. We can create some variations on that as well if we'd like. So we might have another one where we have 1,000 seats masked, for example. And we can create that here and then edit and save there. There we go. So we can create different variations dependent on the different levels of capacity that we might need on this particular reserved seating plan. So we don't need to create a new plan each time that we need to, adjust this number. We can go into it and have various layout overlays to reflect the amount of tickets that we might need to sell, lock off, etc. So again, with our price bands, with an unreserved seating plan, we can only ever have one price band assigned to it. But if you ever need to go in and change what that price band might be, we can do so by selecting from here on the active list. So once we get into our price bands and our lock overlays here, the other thing to point out as well is to always make sure that you're working in the correct layout overlay. So standard layout where we've got 500 masked, or in this example where we've got 1,000 masked as well. As we saw with layouts, we can also create a price band overlay which will appear in this list here, and we always just need to make sure that we are working in the correct layout by choosing on the list here, and you'll always be highlighted in this dark shade of green. So if I then go into price band B for that example there and rename it, there we go. We can do that there. So layouts, price bands, we can create various configurations, and the same again with locks as well. So as standard, we've got these different allocations here, but maybe we want to create a variation on that as well, where we have 10 seats locked. Another thing to show you as well, so each time we create a variation, if we've got something that's already fairly close to what we want to work with anyway, rather than have to create from scratch each time, another time-saving tool you have here is the function to copy a layout overlay. So this standard locks, it's already quite close to what I want. I just want to change wheelchair and add 5 more on, for example. So if I click copy here and then rename it, let's call this standard locks 10 wheelchair, for example. And then I can edit that. So now here, I've already got these other locks populated with the options I want. And I can also then just nudge that up to 10. So then now we've got this version here with 5 wheelchair locks, and then this version here with 10, but everything else is the same. Again, though, if you need to create a new variation, always just making sure that you're working in the right layout overlay, and then adding your lock overlay accordingly from there. I would probably just point out at this stage also that in terms of naming conventions, similar to what I mentioned before with the price list, ticket types as well, it's always best practice to make sure you're being as clear as you possibly can in these layout overlays, lock overlays and price band overlays, just to make life easier for yourself further down the line when you might need to refer back to something, if you're going to be reusing, kind of various layouts, etc. It's always good to have them nice and clearly labeled for reference there. Again, these now won't apply to this particular seating plan. These only work in reserved overlays, which is now what we're going to move on to next. So there we've done an unreserved seating plan. We'll now take a look over a reserved seating plan, and I'm going to go into this seating plan here, where we've got some nice examples ready to go. So I mentioned towards the start of this session as well, this is where the color coding system for price bands will hopefully start to make a bit more sense and come into context a bit more, and hopefully you can start to see that already when I click into this particular price band overlay. But again, similar to what we've just done, I'll take you through the tabs from left to right, just because there's a couple of other elements involved with creating your reserved layout overlays. So first of all, just here, details. This is very much the same as the unreserved plan that we looked at. You can rename it here. You can also add a description just here. You can also change the venue that it's assigned to in this drop-down box here. And again, that's just for admin here, so you don't need to worry about that. In your own systems, you won't see that generally. So you can save and cancel changes that you've made in that seating plan from there. Then over here, you can also assign seat attributes as well. So once you've created those in your settings interface, these can then be assigned on here as well. So an example, and we've got these bubble number seat attributes in this particular example, but another way that you might think about assigning them is, for example, on this side here, where we've got these seats with the letter A assigned to them, that might be the door number that you might want to assign to those seats and then pull through onto the customer's ticket design as well. So it might be, that's door 1, for example, or door left, something along those lines. You could do that. So when you make your selection on the seating plan, these would be door 1. For B, that might be door 2. And then you could keep applying that same rule across each of these various seat attributes. So you can add that extra bit of information on, and that can then be pulled through onto things like your ticket designs. So when the customer's got the ticket in front of them, they can see which auditorium door to head to kind of get them to their seats, in kind of the most fuss-free manner, hopefully. Here we're using bubble numbers. Again, this is sort of very, I suppose, specific to the times we're living in at the moment, where here, I think it's just been used as an example to define which bubble a group of customers might be sitting in as well. So that's just a quick overview of seat attributes, some examples of where you might want to use them. Just one other thing as well to show you in terms of actually adding those. So for example, if I make a selection over these seats here, we've got a couple of tools that we'll see appear kind of in a few sort of these options shortly as well. So we've got this drag and drop frame sort of tool where if we click and hold, we can drag over a selection. We've also got this paintbrush tool here as well. So you can click and hold the mouse in and then sort of squiggle in your options from there. If you click away, it'll clear the selection. Alternatively, you can just hold in Shift and click as well, and then choose seats. So I'll just go with this. And again, going with that example, if those were our door left or door number 1 seats, we can then just make our selection by clicking the button underneath, and there, you can do that there. And then save our changes. So something to point out with seat attributes as well is you can only have one set of seat attributes assigned to a seating plan. So I mentioned with things like layout overlays and price bands and locks, etc., you can have various combinations of those. Seat attributes, unfortunately, you can only have one set assigned to a seating plan. So if you did need to have another seating plan with some different seat attributes assigned to it, we just have to upload a duplicate of that plan to your system to do that with. So that's just one thing to point out there with seat attributes. So just moving then over to the next tab along, view from seat. So you can also upload images onto your seating plan. So an example of how you might want to do that is just choose a couple of seats here on your plan. So for example, I'd go seat J here. When I click add view from seat image, it then just gives you a pop-up box. So if you've got a file on your computer with a preview of what that view from the seat might look like, you can assign it to that one seat there. When the customer floats over it, it gives them a rough idea. So best way to use this is to just have the odd selection. So you might have a view from seat there looking this way. You might have a different image for this side, view from seat there. You might want to have one here looking straight down there, and just have one seat selected in each area with that kind of preview image. What you don't want to do with view from seat is assign that same image across multiple seats, or you sort of end up with a slightly, as we've seen sometimes on previous systems, a bit of a crazy kind of David Hockney-esque photo collage starting to happen. So yeah, best practice with view from seat is to just choose the odd seat on the plan and upload an image accordingly. And again, just to recap on that, so you select a seat, add view from seat image, dig that out from your computer, and then apply it. That's what we really need to show you on view from seat. So then the next thing is moving over to layouts. So again, in terms of the principle, it's similar to what we looked at with an unreserved plan. The only difference being this time, rather than setting, kind of a numerical allocation as such, we're now actually physically choosing seats on a plan to block off and mark off and that kind of thing. So we've got a couple of examples here. Again, hopefully for some clients, just give you a bit of a kind of an overview of what you might be looking at and thinking about doing yourself at the moment. We've got some layouts for auto distancing and social bubbles here, and then this standard layout where there's no seats masked off. So just starting in the standard layout, first of all, here we can see no seats are masked off at all. Everything's available to choose from. Going into this social bubbles example, we can see various red crosses peppered throughout the plan here, and they've completely removed those seats from your allocation as well. So masking seats, we would always recommend, if you do need to remove seats from sale, rather than using locks, if you don't plan to sell them at all, masking works much more effectively, as it not only hides them from view. So if I just go into another layout here, we see not only does it hide them completely from view, it also removes them from your capacity. So when you come to do your sales reports and etc., you can report more accurately as well. So just going back over to the layout overlay there, we can see those configurations and how they relate to our other layouts there. There we go. So we can see now all those bubbles marked off accordingly there. In terms of creating those, so we can create a new layout overlay by clicking on the new button, and then so let's say we've got to show it's kind of a mixing desk in, for example. We can click OK there. That will now appear in the list, and we can then start to edit that. So let's just say in this particular example, we're going to mark off a block of seats here, which is where a mixing desk is going to go. So using a similar tool that we've just seen with seat attributes, and as I mentioned, we'll kind of see come into action across a couple of these tabs. We've got that frame kind of drag and drop option there. And we've also got the paintbrush tool as well. And likewise, we can just select individual seats like that. Just to point out as well, if you click on a seat selection and then click on another one, as you can see, it just moves it over. So if you did want to make a couple of options across your plan, you just need to use the Shift key to make your selection. If I press Shift and then click between these two here, there we go. We can then fill in those like that. So this is, in this example here, we'll just use that there. So this can be quite a handy tool for just getting a block of seats. We're going to, in this particular case, mark off those there for our mixing desk. So in terms of making that selection, as you can see, quite a simple process. You either add a new overlay. Again, as I mentioned before as well, if you've got an overlay that already looks quite close to what you'd like to work with, you just need to make a slight change to it. Using the copy function can be quite handy as well. So let's say in this social bubbles example, I don't want to do all that work again on a new overlay. I can just copy that. And then in this particular example, so social bubbles copy, I actually just want to block off these seats here. I can just fill in those. There we go. And I don't then have to repeat that task of going through all these as well as those seats. So once I'm happy with that, I can then do that. I might also want to rename that, rather than being social bubbles copy. I very nearly said social bubbles then. Social bubbles, no boxes, for example there. Let's do that. There we go. So that's sort of our layout overlays. So then just moving along to price bands here, we can then start to assign our different price grouping to the seating plan as well. So let's just go to our standard layout for this. And let's work with just the 3 price bands that correlate with our price list that we looked at earlier on. So if anyone recalls from before, when we were looking at price lists, I had those 2 examples, which were just looking at price bands A, B, and C, which we can see reflected in this example here. In terms of editing that, so if we did need to add an additional price band, for example, so let's say here, I just need to go in, select edit, and then make my selection of seats, again using those same tools that we've looked at previously. And then down here we can see assign price band as an option. So if I go up here, and let's say in this example I want to add a 4th price band on, price band D, we can now see the color changes to reflect that. And that's where I might have mentioned earlier as well, having those clearly defined colors when you're setting up your price bands can be quite handy, because when you get to this stage, you can then see nice and clearly on your seating plan which tickets belong to which price band. Key thing to point out as well is to make sure that if you have got, let's say in this example here, I've added price band D onto this particular seating plan, and I now need to make sure that in an event that I'm setting up, that price band D is also in the price list. Otherwise, it'll give you an error message to say that there's a mismatch between your price band overlay and your price list, and it won't let you proceed with saving the event. So just to avoid that, I'm going to assign these back to price band C. There. So again, here in this particular example, I've just got this 1 price band layout overlay that I'm working in. Again, if I needed to make any changes in other variations though, I would then just need to make sure that I'm working in the right layout overlay and adjust accordingly. So it might be that in this particular example, let's say from here onwards, these are in price band B. And we can then adjust that accordingly as well if needs be. So we just need to make sure whichever seating plan variation we're working on, that's always selected at the top there. And just kind of recapping on what we've already seen, but with price band overlays, we can also duplicate those if needs be. So again, if you've got something that's already quite close to what you'd like to work with already, you can just copy it. Or again, if you don't want to make changes to something that's already been assigned to, say, other events, for example, you might not want to mess anything up. You can copy and then work in your duplicate, safe in the knowledge that the other one isn't being tampered with. So there, another use case for where you might want to use the copy function, and we can just adjust that accordingly there. So then moving over to locks, again, it's sort of, a lot of this is quite sort of rinse repeat at this stage, only with some slight variations, but we can see there when we're into the lock overlay, this time the seating plan changes slightly. It just now shows you where the locks are on your plan. So on this particular plan, let's say we're going to our standard layout, we can see here with our standard locks, we've got our wheelchair seats on the end of the row here. We've also got some hearing loop seats locked off here. There's also a variation called standard locks, extra hearing loops. I think just some extra seats have been added on either end there. Let's say in our standard locks that we might want to change that. We can also then go into there, make a selection. So let's just say we want to add on some extra wheelchair seats. We can then choose from there and pop those on. And then we can save our changes. And we can also see on this particular lock overlay as well, we've got some other locks at the top here for T and U. I can't remember what those locks were. Let's have a quick look if they're on here. I think they'll be technical and usher, those ones there. There you go. But the process is very much the same to what we've seen already with other elements. So we just select our seats and lock them off. The other thing to probably point out here as well, just see if I can put this in context. Let's say on this row, I just lock some of these off to this particular seat here. If I then change that to this auto distancing rule, those seats, now I'm working in standard locked, but those seats are also locked. They're now locked and masked. So it's just something to point out. If you ever see a message that says when you're setting up an event, when you're choosing a seating plan, this is the seats here are both locked and masked. That will generally be what it's relating to. So it's just because in this lock overlay that I'm working in, I've used it in conjunction with a layout overlay where those seats are actually masked off. And so it's caused a bit of a conflict. So that's just something to point out at this stage there. So we can see on that row locked off, but then when I move over to that, if I then try and assign that lock overlay in conjunction with that layout overlay, it's going to have a wobbler with those there. But not to get too into the weeds with that for now, and let's just clear those locks. There we go. And then save our changes there. So the next two tabs that we'll look at is just finally the sort of the info tab, and then a quick look over best available. We won't get too into that one. So info works very much in the same way that we've already seen with the lock overlays as well. So with your seating plans, you can also add on extra bits of information. So when in the sales interface or on the website, if you have information applied to a seat, you can float your cursor over it and it will give you the relevant bit of information. So as we can see here, on this particular example for this info overlay, on the left and right here, they have this restricted view info added onto it. So we'll hopefully see that when we go into the sales interface once we've set up an event as well. When we float over, there'll be a little information eye inside the seat, and then when we pop our cursor on top of it, it'll just let us know what that info is. So in this case, restricted view. Over here, limited access, good for captions, etc. So you can add that extra context information, however you want to put it, onto your seating plan as well if needs be. And again, as we've seen in all these different tabs, we can copy, we can create a new one over here and assign accordingly. Whenever we go into it, if we highlight our seats, we then just choose the information we'd like to add onto it. But yeah, in terms of the functionality, it's very much the same. So kind of don't want to repeat too much of what I've kind of gone over already, just so we can kind of press on with getting an event together. So just finally, that is the best available tab. And again, just to give you a quick overview of what this is. So you can assign best available layout overlays to seating plans. Use cases where you might use these could be if you've got a show that you anticipate is going to be particularly busy or have quite a kind of popular on sale for. You can have a layout overlay assigned to automatically sort of assign what the system sees as the best available seats to the customer and kind of fill in the seating plan that way. So the decisions made for the customer there. It's all based on these sort of heat values that you assign to the seating plan as well. So just give you a sort of an overview of what that would look like in practice. Let me just cancel that and go back in. So we can see here, it's done on temperature. So in this particular example, these seats are have the hottest temperature, so these would be considered the best seats. So when a customer tries to add to the basket, the seating plan will kind of populate these seats first, then it'll start to move out to these seats and then work out here until it gets to these really cold spots, with row A in this particular example being the worst seats, just the not best seats is probably the best way of putting that. You can specify your various heat, so your temperatures and your range that you specify with this as well here. So if I just quickly drag this over, as you can see here, as I move this, the colors change to reflect the seating plan temperature there. So if I go like that, right in the middle here, really, really hot, and then it gets colder. And again, we can expand that range as needed as well. If you've got seats, so if, for example, these seats up here with the boxes, we can also assign individual temperatures to those as well. So if I just set those to 1000, for example, there. So you can isolate seats as well. So boxes are going to be as good as these ones. You can set your pricing, where you can set your kind of heat accordingly on those. Again, it's just making sure that you're always working in the right layout overlay as well whenever you're working with best available. that's a quick primer on best available. Again, if it's something you're interested in working with or would like to know a bit more about, I would probably say it's best to give us a shout after this session and we can take you through that in a bit more detail. Just good to kind of point out with it just sitting there as we're going through this setup. So we're going to move over to actually putting some instances together in a moment. Just the final thing to give you a quick whistle-stop tour of as well is this document designs tab, specifically just for tickets here in this column. And hopefully in most of your systems already, you'll already have ticket designs in place. I think it's just always good to show you where these live when we come to choose them in our event setup in a second as well. So document designs, you got then tickets, merchandise, also your e-tickets, and here. Other would just be for things like address labels, card receipts, etc., gift vouchers. And then everything else on here, this is for more like system generated emails for sending new accounts out, etc. So we don't need to worry about those too much, mainly this one here. So document designs, if I just go into one of these examples for now, so main ticket design, for example, this will take you into the document design tool. And we can see here, this is just an overview, might look quite similar to what a lot of you may already have in place already. But within here, you can assign, you can add text to it, you can pull through various fields, add your barcodes, etc., on here. But for those extra bits of information that you might want to pull through onto your tickets, you can do all that through here. So yeah, again, I won't kind of go too much into that. I just wanted to show you where it lives. I would say again, with this particular part, if you've got any troubleshooting that you need to do with document designs or anything that you might want to try out with them, definitely want to give us a shout. But say you could probably spend the whole in-depth session going around this particular tool. I always just think it's handy to show you where it lives to put the next part in context in a moment. So, quick breather. We've got now a lot of the fundamental building blocks in place at this stage. So once those are all together, we can now start looking at the process of getting our instances and our shows in place in your system. So to do that, we need to head over to the events tab. And once we land in here, we can then see a list of your existing performances that are already active on your system. We've got a couple of options for searching for those there as well, based on the event name, when they were created, when they have performances from and to, as well as attributes that might have been assigned to them. So I don't know if anything's got a genre of comedy assigned to it, for example, Aladdin. There we go. So if you've assigned a genre attribute, which we'll have a look at in a moment, you can search based on those values. You can also search based on the status it's in as well, just down here, and based on the venue that a performance might be at also. So all your active performances will sit in this list here. We're going to add a new one just by clicking on the add button here, which then takes us through, first of all, to this new event form. And what we'll do for this next part as well is I'll create a couple of examples of events, one being on a reserved plan and then another being on an unreserved plan, just so we can see how those will then correlate to selling in your sales interface as well. So first of all, let's give this event a name. There we go. Shall it be a thrilling performance of Thursday the Musical? So here, that red dash, just as I might have mentioned on some other fields already, is as a compulsory field. So we need to put something in there in order to proceed with setting up our event. Next, we then give it an optional description, which we can pop underneath here, a bit of extra information about the show. At the moment, so the status of this will be draft, so it won't be available to sell until we say otherwise. And again, because there's no instances, this will be unchangeable at this stage. Date created, it'll just populate with today's date. Underneath here, we can then also specify the duration. It's optional, so we can pop that information in there. You can also add a small thumbnail image to accompany in the sales interface, as well as on your website as well. So you can choose that there. When we select that, it'll just bring up the image uploader. There is a file limit size of about 4 megabytes, I think. So if you find you're getting any errors, that's usually a good first port of call from there. These options here, so you can set a financial target for a show and a seats target, and these can then work with, sorry, random numbers there. These can work in conjunction with some of your event sales reports. So based on what you've set as those targets, you can then see how well you're performing against those based on what you've sold so far. Underneath here then, so some of these other options will be specific to your own system. These are just some examples on ours. So if you've got any partner companies that might be linked to your system, you can specify those from there. If not, that option won't appear. Underneath then, we've got some examples of event attributes as well. So I mentioned about one in that search box a minute ago for like comedy. So depending on what you've set up in your settings interface, you can choose those from there. So genre is a nice example of an event attribute, and then that can be used to filter your search results. It can also be used in reporting. So if you want to see, you know, kind of pull, rather than kind of selecting individual events in a report, you can just group them all together by saying, okay, what's the event sales looking like for anything that's in a comedy event? It can be good for segmenting in customer lists as well. So attributes, really good function for those kinds of day-to-day uses. Again, that's just another example on there. Also, you might notice this one's been set up to be compulsory. So with these here, we need to specify an option in order to proceed. With these ones, these are non-compulsory, so we don't actually need to say anything in those if we don't want to. But yeah, these are just some example event attributes that have been set up on this system. You can have any other variations that you might think work on your own system. So these are completely specific system to system there. So once I'm happy with how that's all looking, we can then click add, which then takes us through, or should take us through here to basic details first of all. So we can go back in and edit any of those at this stage here and save our changes. But the next thing we want to do is start creating some instances. So the event being the overall container of, you know, for this show, instances being the individual performances that will occur during it. So let's say, first of all, we're going to create some weeknight performances for this particular show. So let's say it starts at 6 o'clock in the evening. The time format there is in 24 hours. Here we then need to specify the instance, so the first instance date. So let's say the first performance of this is going to be on Monday the 7th. We can also specify here that we'd like that to be recurring. So if I say here, this is going to be Monday through to Thursday, and let's say this has a run through till, I don't know, very long performance run. There. So what that now means is between these dates here, every time there's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, it will assign a 6 o'clock performance in that date range for us. So then next, we just need to choose our price list. So I'll go for now just with this example price list, Monday to Thursday, which has our 3 price bands assigned to it here. Next, we just need to choose the tax code that would be applicable to your organization. I'm just going to go with exempt in this particular example. Here we then also need to choose a ticket commission structure. So I'll just choose that 50p commission, for example, there. And then ticket design. So again, this is just why I like to show you around document designs, first of all, just to show you where they live, just to put this in context. So if I go with main ticket design, and again, choose our templates there. So these being for our actual tickets. And then if you have for print at home, like a styled PDF template that the ticket is attached to, you just choose that from there as well. So we can see here now that we can specify the status that this show will be in. Recommended best practice would be to do that while you're still creating an event, is to set it as draft. In this particular case, I'm going to set it to live so we can see it all in our system. In fact, no, I won't. I'm going to leave it at draft, and I'm going to show you something in a moment. Ignore what I just said. So yeah, we'll keep it in draft now, as that is best practice anyway. So we'll keep it in draft here, and we'll make a change to it in a moment. So underneath, we can then also specify the max number of seats that can be purchased online. So the system default here is to only allow 10 seats to be sold per transaction. You can change that as well in your settings. So if you want to make the system default higher or lower, you can do. Otherwise, we can also say on a performance basis, a custom number. So let's say actually for this show, we want to limit customers to only be able to make 5 tickets, purchase 5 tickets during the booking journey on the website there. So we can have a bit of control over that. Again, you might want to think about using that variation if you've got a show that you anticipate will be quite popular. You want to make sure the most customers get the fairest chance of getting tickets. Something like that would be where you'd use the custom number instead of your default. Underneath, we can then see our delivery methods that we have available. So harking back to what we mentioned at the start of the session here with ticket types and delivery methods, because care of box office is set to always available, we can't change that here, it's grayed out. Otherwise, between these other delivery methods, here, we can then specify which ones we want. So I'm going to keep both those ticked for this particular show. Underneath, we then got this option to include in metrics. So effectively, do you want to include this in your reports as standard, really? So for most events you set up in your system, you'll generally want that to be included in your metrics. I'm going to show you around a supplementary event in a moment for the Champagne add-on, which you might not want to report on sort of generally day to day. So for something like that, you might want to untick it. But in the case of most events, you'll want to have that ticked there. Underneath then, we've just got to specify the sales channels that we're going to make this available on, or I should say your sales interface and your website here. Underneath as well, so if you're using the opportunities interface and if you're doing agency sales, you'd then also specify those options. Again, just for this example here, sales and website is what we'll specify. So at the moment, these are just visible but not on sale. So by ticking that, we then enable sales for this performance once it's been set to live. So we can also say when we'd like to start selling from. You'll notice here as well with the web, it'll specify a date and a time. So you might want your sales interface to go on immediately, but set the website further down the line. Otherwise, we can just do that, and then they'll both be on sale as standard. The next column along then here is just when you'd like to sell until. So in this column, we can see by default, an event will always be available to buy tickets for up until 1 hour after the performance starts. But you can otherwise specify, either more or less if you wanted. So let's say 30 minutes before, for example. It's probably rare in your sales interface you'll cut off sales before an instance. It might be on the website though. There you go. Yeah, 1 hour before is the default. You might want to make that smaller, for example, there. So you can configure those options, and the format for doing so is just using that there. So just type it in 1 hour before, 1 hour after, etc., etc. You can do that through that column. Underneath, so we've seen some event attribute examples already. These are just some examples of instance attributes. So again, these are custom bits of information that you can add on at an instance level. These will be specific to your own system here. So these just being some that we've got on ours. So these might be relaxed performances, for example. You can assign that information on there. Whether also you can also use attributes in a clever way to define whether performances will be eligible for specific discounts in your offer setup as well. So you can use attributes for that kind of function. But otherwise, we just specify. You can see also underneath here, if you're using strict bubble seating, for example, you just need to have the relevant options specified for those there. Otherwise, I'm sort of generally happy with that. So we've now got a 6 o'clock performance that's going to occur Mondays to Thursdays in this date range here. We can then click next at this stage. At this point, we can then assign a ticket donation structure if we've got one in place. So by default, it'll say none. Otherwise, from those options we saw earlier, we can say £1 on every ticket. You can also set up a custom ticket donation structure in the event setup as well if you need to. You can do that from there. and then choose the fund that you'd like to associate that with. And we'll have a look at some funds shortly as well. Otherwise, though, we'll just say none and then move on to our seating plan. So I will set this one up first of all as, let's do this using an unreserved, no, we'll do it as a reserved seating plan, this one. So let's go into our standard theatre, wherever that may be. Let's have a look. There we go. Yeah, we'll make this an unreserved plan for now. So this is the unreserved plan that's just using the one price band. So we can see we've got our standard layout that we set up earlier on. So 2,500 is our max capacity. Maxed area capacity is 2,000, and that's because we've got 500 seats masked off. We've also got 20 locked off there, giving us that number we saw before of 1,980 general allocation, with the other 20 that takes us up to 2,000 being these locked seats here. But then because we created some variations earlier on, we can see that changes our numbers, price bands, and locks as well. So we can configure that as we need to. I'll just, for the purposes of this, use all these ones here, standard locks for now. Once we're happy with that, we can click add. And that's now given us, there we go, a series of instances that occur every Monday to Thursday throughout that date range. So from Monday the 7th of December, right the way up to 28th of January. And these are all now currently in draft form as well. So these won't actually be available to sell just yet until we set these to live. So I'll show you something we can do with that in a moment once we've added some other instances. I'm just going to take you through some other tabs first of all from here. So next we've got our website content. So from here you can add some additional content here. So you might want to, you know, add a synopsis about the show, that kind of thing. So Spektrix show. Ooh, there we go. Sorry, keyboard's just shouting at me. There we go. So we can format that using the formatting guide on our right hand side and preview that, and then that'll just pull through. I'll give you a preview here that matches the styling on your website. So with this being linked to an unstyled kind of iframe that we have, it doesn't look particularly flashy down there, but you preview any of your website content in that box through here. You can also assign your event IDs here as well. So depending on your website integration, you can assign an ID, which can then pull through onto your CMS, that kind of thing. Otherwise, the system generates a unique ID as well for you. These are the boxes. So if you've got these set up, and again, these would be more kind of a follow-up thing if you're interested to know a bit more about those. We've got some guidance and we can help you out with that as a follow-up to this. But if you've got those set up, you can also enable that in this section here as well. So we won't kind of worry too much about those, just to give you a quick overview of the website content box there. And save your changes as needed or cancel as I've just done there. You can also recommend and cross-sell to other events as well in Spektrix. So for example, if I just click on edit here, and let's do something like that. There we go. We can say if I've got this event Thursday the musical in the basket as an add-on in the website journey and in the sales interface, as we'll see once we go over there in a short while, it will prompt the customer if they're interested in adding this to the basket as well. Likewise, it will also say if customer's got Aladdin in the basket, it will also then suggest Thursday the musical to them in the sales interface and on the website. It doesn't have to be cyclical. It could be that you just put any other event in there. I mean, concert cabaret, for example, there. So in this case now, it's saying if we've got Thursday the musical in the basket, cross-sell Aladdin. Otherwise, if we've got concert cabaret in the basket, cross-sell to Thursday the musical. So you can either make it cyclical or you can kind of mix and match it all, however you think would work best for yourselves there with that. And we'll have a look at that in context in a short moment as well. supplementary events as well. So you can create additional add-on sort of parts of the customer journey online using supplementary events. And this is hopefully where this champagne ticket type and price list that I pointed out earlier on will come into play. So essentially what we do, I've got one ready to go just here to take you through it. What you do in the case of this, where we're asking customers if they'd like to pre-book champagne ahead of a performance, another example might be a pre or post show talk. You might even want to do it for things like if someone needs to pre-book kind of hearing loops, sort of that kind of thing. You can do all that through supplementary events quite elegantly. Just using the example of the champagne here. So you would effectively set it up as an event in its own right with a series of instances. So here we've got daily instances that run right the way through till April in this particular example. And then what we just need to do is specify that we would like this to act as a supplementary event for a primary event. So then when this matches up with the right rules, so we can see here, allow interval champagne to act as a supplementary event. This will occur whenever another primary event occurs on the same day. We can then match that up to our chosen event and make it a part of the booking journey. So in terms of setting up a supplementary event, yeah, you create your instances. It'd have its own seating plan with its own allocation, its own price list. As we've got our champagne price list with the ticket type in there as needed. This can then be linked on to our primary event, which we can then see over in here. Here we go. So now, because we've got show supplementary events for Thursday the musical, interval champagne matches up with that. We can then select that from our list there. And hopefully what we'll see once we've made this live is during the booking journey, the customer will choose their seats. They'll get taken through to an extra step in their transaction. They'll say, would you like any of these following extras? Interval champagne, etc., etc. They can then choose to add them to the basket if they want, otherwise skip to the rest of the basket from there. So that's kind of a quick overview of supplementary events, but probably the key takeaway with that is set them up as their own kind of events with their own instances, price lists, and relevant ticket types that would work in context. You can then link them to your primary event once the rules match up. And again, if you'd like to know a bit more about that or anything, if you're already working with them but might want to think about other ways of working with them, give us a shout after this session. We can take you through that in a bit more detail. There's also some resources in the support center about supplementary events. The other tab then along here as well is order attributes. So again, with when you're setting up an event, you can also gather extra information. Probably again, the most topical order attribute you might have at the moment might be things like getting contact tracing information. So they could be set up in your settings interface. Contact tracing number could be a text field that customers need to fill out before completing their booking. And again, those can be assigned on an event by event basis as well. Unfortunately, I haven't got an example to show you there, but otherwise you just choose them from this list and then assign it to the event, and then the customer would then just fill those out. Again, it might be for a show where you might need to, if it's a workshop, for example, you might need to gather consent for, photography, that kind of thing. You might want a checkbox order attribute that a parent can tick in there, that sort of thing. You can also do that through here. So then just the final tab down here is the audit tab. So this will just give you an overview, kind of very top level information of changes that have been made. So you can see who made the change, that top level overview of what the action was, and then a date and time stamp on that as well from there. So at the moment, just to go back to our instances, at present here, we've created a series of performances that occur every Monday to Thursday and have that relevant price list assigned to it. But let's say now I actually want to add on a series of weekend performances as well. I can do so by going back into the instances tab and then over here clicking add. Still going to be an evening performance, but this time let's just say they're going to start on the same date and run through, I think it's 28th there, wasn't it? January there. These are now going to recur every Friday, Saturday and Sunday instead. So just do something like that. And then choose the relevant price list for it. So by clicking the add button, it's already completed a lot of the other options that we had in place on the other instances. We've just got to make the relevant tweaks to this. So our relevant price list, everything else though, maybe the ticket commission changes slightly at the weekend as well, just for something else to tweak on that. We can then change those there. Sales channels, everything else is going to be the same. We'll just specify an option from those. We can then go next. And next one more time, and I'm just going to add on some instances using our reserved plan that we looked at as well. Again, as I mentioned towards the start of this session, just to give you an overview of how both those will look in your sales interface. So if I then choose the relevant layout overlay, and there we go. I mentioned earlier on as well when we were doing lock and price band overlays, etc., that if you have got a conflict between your locks and your layouts, you'll get this error message here. This will likely be because of some hearing loop locks up here possibly, but if we just go for now with standard layout there, we've got our price band overlay A, B and C, which reflects our price list, and our lock overlay for standard locks there as well. Happy with how all that looks, we can then click add on that particular plan there. But as we can see, all those variations that we created earlier become available to choose. If it does come across anything, any conflicts, it does let you know from there. If ever you get stuck on anything as well and you're sort of pulling your hair out over it, just give us a shout and we can always take a look over it with you as well from there. So we can then click add. And that'll now create a series of weekend performances with the relevant price list assigned to them. So now we can see there, we've got a run throughout here. There we go. So we now, oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. So now these are all currently in draft. So what we just need to do is set these to be live to be able to sell them on our sales interface and on our website as well. So we can either go into each performance and change the status like that. Naturally, that will be quite time consuming. Oh, there we go. Bear with me just a moment. It's having a slight wobbler moment with me. Right, let's go back in there. Apologies for that. Let me just try that again.
Wouldn't be a training session if we didn't have a little bit of a green screen.
There we go. Let's just get another well. Right. So where was I? Instances. I've just got a slight funny feeling as well. It's not added my weekend performances. Let me just give that another shot there. Sorry for this slight delay. I'm just going to quickly whiz through that there. So let's say that's going to start from here. Yep. Recurring. Happy Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And let's just go to here. There we go. Right, that should all be fine. There we go. So just quickly to whiz back through those again and choose the right seating plan. That's all fine. Click add. So I just mentioned there about our status, sorry, yes. So to just get myself back on track, here we go. So I mentioned we can either go into each performance and choose either draft, live, etc. As you can imagine, that'll be quite time consuming if you've got a lot of performances, as we can see here. So a good time saving tool that you can utilize in Spektrix is the update multiple instances function. This just allows you to make changes in bulk to performances. So in this example here, just to quickly recap on that, because I was whizzing through those steps, if we click on update multiple instances here, a new pop-up box will appear. We've got various options on how we can filter the events we want. In this example, I'm just going to drag down the events tab, uncheck only show live events as it's not yet live, and then filter on the name. We can then find that from our list, Thursday the musical, and then include the following events here. When we click OK, and then click next, we can see that now populates with all the performances that we would like to update there. So once we're happy with our selection, we can then move on to the next step. And from here, we can then specify the status we'd like to change it to. So rather than having to go into each performance one by one and change them from draft to live, we can now do all 56 in bulk, and then click next there. It'll then give us again one more confirmation window of what we'd like to update. And once we're happy with the confirmation, so we can say property, status, new value, live, all these are going to be updated. We can click next, and then the bulk instance update whirs around in this top corner here. If it's been successful, it'll say success. If not, it'll generate an Excel file for us, and it'll just give us a quick error message in there. All being well, that should successfully update. And we then should see that appear in our sales interface in a moment when we go over there. So we've now created our event instances. There we go, success. We've also linked a supplementary event to the bulk of them as well. The champagne interval there also. So the next thing, just to show you, will be merchandise and funds as well. So firstly, if I just go over to the other tab, and I'll show you the process of adding funds first of all. So we can see here when we land in this tab, we've already got a sort of long list of examples that we've created previously. Your funds in Spektrix, so you can have as many funds as you like, and there's various ways you can sort of use them as well. So in this example here, we've got some different examples of asks that you might have in place, and these can all be linked to specific events as well, so you can make that ask context specific. And we'll just have a look at adding a new fund over here. So by clicking the add button, we're taken through to the new fund form. Let's say this is called we need your support today or something like that. So that name of the fund can be your call to arms, as it were. You can then also in the description use that to assign, each year, etc. It's, kind of, we take, X amount of money. You know what I mean? Kind of, you sort of add your kind of ask in there as well. So this can be your headline call to arms. Underneath, you can then add a bit more of an ask underneath in the description field. You can also use a code to group funds together as well. You might have seen in that column there that some funds, although they have different names and different asks, they all had the same code. So using the code field can be a nice way of grouping funds together. So if they're all going towards this, the same sort of pot, as it were, but you just wanted different context-specific variations and asks, that could be a nice way of grouping them together. Here, so display on web. So whether you want this donation ask to be a part of the online booking journey or not. Again, at the point of creation, you can specify whether you'd like it to be active or not. And then here, you just then choose the relevant campaign. This looks like an overwhelmingly large list, but it's just because it's one of our demo systems. But otherwise, if you've got a campaign set in place, for your financial year individual giving, for example, that would just be the campaign it's linked to. And then here, these are actually examples of fund attributes. So these won't be visible in a lot of your systems. These are just custom bits of information that have been added on, probably when someone's been testing something out in this system. So otherwise we can disregard those, but they're just some examples of extra custom information that you can store against a fund, as we've seen with things like events, instances, orders, etc., etc. So once we're happy with that, we can then specify where, when we'd like this to appear. So we can say never to force this way on the way to checkout, always force, so regardless of what's in the basket, just always show this fund. Otherwise, we can say only if a customer's got a specific event in the basket. So let's go with our Thursday the musical here. So what this will mean now is this particular fund will only show up when a customer has this event in the basket. So, you know, probably a real world example you might be doing at the moment is if you've got a Christmas appeal, you might want to set that up as a fund, but you might only want to link that to, you know, kind of Christmas specific performances. You could do something like that. That's probably like a real world example and, you know, a topical example. Customer criteria. So again, you can say, always show this to all customers, or we can also choose to include or even exclude specific customers here. So I don't know if we've got like a VIP tag, for example, or, you know, maybe even your members, you don't want to ask for a fund. You might want to say, don't show this fund to members, just as an example. So you can use that, you know, if we flip that on its head, only show this fund to members if they're booking for that event. So there's various ways you can think about using the customer criteria. Otherwise, we can just say always as well there. The next box along then as well is the default amount that you'd like to suggest as well. So you can change the suggested amount dynamically based on how much the customer has in the basket. So it might be for a basket value of 0 and above, £3 is a starting point. For anyone that has £50 or more in the basket, you might want to bump that up to £4. And we can keep incrementally increasing that as we go. So maybe for a basket value of £100 more, we might suggest £5. So you can change that based on what you think the customer's capacity to give would be, you know, based on what they've spent. From there, in terms of how you would determine those values, using things like your conversion analysis reports, your donation reports can help you kind of define what customers have been donating on average and that kind of thing. So that's a useful report to go to help you with that bit. And like I say, you've got the flexibility there should you want to use that and set those values accordingly. So once you click OK there, that will then appear in the list. So there we go. I think I've already done that one there. So we need your support today now appears, and we should hopefully see that appear in our booking journey when we book for this show. It might be some of these other funds have been set to always display during the booking journey. So we might see some of these appear in the list along with that, just based on those rules. But otherwise, hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of how those work. So we've set up a fund, we've linked it to that event. We can also do a similar thing with merchandise as well. So over in the merchandise tab, we can see here, we've got a list of existing merchandise already set up in the system. And we've got some keyword searches that we can filter on there as well. So we can search for, you know, just because I can see ballerina there. If we search on that, that should give us anything that fulfills that search criteria. But you can also search based on these options as well. We're going to add a new item just by clicking on the add button here again, which brings up a very similar form to what we've already seen in various other parts of this interface when we've been building events. But in this case, what we're going to do is, let's say Thursday, the musical brochure program, brochure program there. There we go. So give it a name. We can assign an optional description to it as well. And then underneath, we've got some additional fields. So again, similar to when we're setting up events, we can add a thumbnail image to merchandise items as well to pull through on your sales interface and on your website. You can also assign things like your cost price. So maybe, you know, these cost 25 pence per brochure to print. We're selling them at a markup of £3 each. You can also assign postage and packaging for your merchandise as well. And underneath here, we can specify that we'd like to track the stock quantity. So a new box appears here that we can't currently edit just yet until we've added the item, but we'll come back to that in a second as well. Underneath, we then just need to assign the relevant tax code, so whatever's specific to your organization. And then finally here, if you've got a merchandise ticket design set up over in the document designs tab, you can assign that there. We haven't got one set up on this particular example, so none for now. And then again here, whether we'd like it to be active or not. This then again is another merchandise attribute. So this is just specific to this system, but again, another in a long list of examples of you know, extra add-on information you can assign to items in Spektrix. So once I'm happy with how that all looks, we can then click add here. And that gives us then some extra options. So first of all, because we've got track stock quantity enabled, we can now adjust that. So at the moment, 0. Let's say we've had a delivery of 500 programs. We then just need to increase that. We've now got 500 in stock. Each time we sell one, it will deduct from that quantity. But if we need to write some stock off as well, we can, say if something's been damaged, we can then say 5 and decrease that. That then takes us down to 495, and then it will continue to deduct from that amount each time you sell. Underneath, then got a website tab, so we can then add some website content. So if you want this to be available to sell on your website, you just need to have a merchandise iframe set up to pull that through, and then we can set some options here. So display on your website, as well as allow postal delivery online when purchasing this item. So, again, just some jazzy, snazzy content there. And similar to what we saw with website content for your event earlier on, that'll just give you a preview of what it'll look like on your website. That's fine. Underneath, so then this is where we can link it to an event. So in this case, it's a brochure for Thursday the musical. So it makes sense for that to only will kind of be added, not only, but be suggested as an add-on in the booking journey for that. So if we then click from the drop-down list there, Thursday the musical, and then select add, it populates it in this list here. We can do that for multiple events where we see fit. Otherwise, just for this one, we'll do that. So although it'd be available as a standalone item to purchase in the sales interface, and if you've got a merchandise page online, this will just kind of suggest it in the booking journey as well as an add-on from there. Underneath then, you've also then got some cross-selling options. So we can see here, when promoting Thursday the musical program alongside events, the default number of items to offer should be always the same number of items as tickets. So 2 tickets in the basket suggests 2 programs. Always just, maybe 1 program. Alternatively, maybe you want to go 1 program for every 2 tickets, for example. Otherwise, I'm just going to choose that, but you've got some flexibility with that there as well. And we can click save. Underneath here, we've then also got the audit trail. So similar to what we've already seen, this will just let you know who's made changes, what the action was, and the date and timestamp for that particular change. So once we're happy with everything in there, that's all linked to our event. We've now got a full event set up with our performances now live. We've got a fund linked to it, and we've also got our merchandise associated there. So we should find now when we go to the sales interface over here, Thursday the musical now appears here with our performances. So if we go into just a Monday performance, for example, that's our unreserved show that we set up. So we can see there that it's just got the tickets allocations that you'd like to assign. So you just choose however many tickets you'd like from each option. We've also got our add-on merchandise that we suggested there in the basket, as well as the recommended event that we're cross-selling to for Aladdin. So if we add that to the basket, we can also see there the fund that will appear for Thursday the musical as well. If we cancel there, just to show you the reserved plan that we set up as well. So then we've got a weekend performance. Where's that? There we go. There we go. So that was on the reserve plan. So then that shows us the seating plan with the price band overlay, etc. And again, suggested merchandise, Aladdin. And then when we add that to the basket, the suggested fund as well. So I realise we're kind of creeping up quite fast now to the 2-hour mark. Hence me kind of, you might have noticed, sort of gently picking up momentum towards those last couple of elements there, but hopefully still it gives you a useful primer in some of those elements. And also, I say, as Jack mentioned at the start, this will be available to rewatch. We're also on hand to help with any questions you might have after today's session relating to anything you'd like to go over. All the usual channels of support are open to email us, give us a call, go to the support centre. That's what we're here for, to help you out through that. So at this stage, I'll stop talking and see if anyone's got any questions or anything they'd just like a quick recap on before we wrap up this session.
Hey Kyle, we do have a few questions.
Yeah.
Someone from No Fit State Circus has come to us saying, going back to venues, we're a touring company, taking our tent from place to place. So the venue/seating is the same, but the location/address is different. What would we do to make this happen sensibly?
So I think using, let's have a look. So the venue seating is the same, location is different. I would probably, in that instance, if these are reserved plans, let me just make sure I'm understand that correctly. Seating is the same, location, address is different. I would probably still. Would these be reserved seating plans as well, or are they unreserved?
We'll just see if we
Hmm.
get a response to that. I would say, I think in the case of this, I would say that your circus tent is your venue,
Yeah,
realistically, and then the seating plans within it are your seating plans, just because we would consider
yeah.
the venue sort of like the building in things. We've had a response, perhaps it depends on COVID, which, yeah.
Yeah,
I think your
yeah,
best bet, is probably to consider your tent your venue, and then you'll be putting like the location and the address of where it is based within your copy, I would assume, and all of that good stuff.
yeah. Yeah, I would second that really. What Jack mentioned there. But again, if that's something we can have a chat through with you as well as a follow up to if that's something you're thinking about, let us know. But yeah, I'd say as a sort of an immediate suggestion on that, tent as the venue, and then changing location on the seating plans accordingly, if that helps. But do keep in touch with us if we can.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, I've only just noticed that response pop through there. Yeah, so it says some further questions as well. I might be,
Yes,
let's see,
indeed.
lagging behind. Here we go. Is that
So,
Helen socially distance? Is that?
yeah. So the main thing is this is if I need to make an amendment, can I edit masking at the instance level?
Let's have a look. Edit masking at an instance level. Yes, so you can on each performance you can edit the masking that you're using can be changed instance by instance, absolutely. So if you do need to change that will do it. Interesting, didn't understand the strict bubble tick box. So yes, so strict bubble tick box, so that's created in your settings interface. It's basically if you're going to use strict bubble mode, you need to have that attribute set up on your system, using that format there of strict bubble seating, and then tick box. And then for any instances that you want to enforce that on, you just need to make sure that's ticked. And then with that in place, the system will then kind of recognize which seats are grouped together in bubbles, and it will then restrict bookers online being able to choose individual seats from that bubble. Again, we've got some guidance in the support centre about that. And Helen, if you want to have a chat with us as a follow-up on that, we can take you through that process. But yeah, it is something you would create at your end and then assign on an instance by instance basis.
Yeah, I would
Ticket
say
donation.
I would say it's definitely worth making sure that you have a look at the support centre article, just because that explains exactly what it should look like and how it should work, because it does need to be precise. So it's actually a combination of what Helen's asked there. It is an instance attribute, but it is an instance attribute that powers a system function.
Yeah, that's actually a much better way of putting it. Thanks, Jack.
No worries. And lastly, Helen's asked, what's the difference between ticket donation structures and funds?
Yes, so the funds that we looked at just towards the end of the session there, that's effectively adding a donation to the basket. The ticket donation structure that we looked at is adding a ticket donation is adding a donation per ticket. So just to reiterate on that there, if we've got a ticket donation structure in place that's £1 for every ticket we add to the basket, it's going to add on £1. So £5 ticket with a £1 donation, that's £6. Another ticket, 12. That would be £6. What's that? £11. That takes us up to, I'm doing my maths right, £12. Sorry, £12, etc., etc. The fund that we looked at there is a basket level. So both just work on dependent on whether you want to add donations per ticket or per basket. I mean, there's no stopping you doing both. It might be generally speaking though that you do it on a ticket donations or general funds as well, if that helps.
Yeah, I would say as well with ticket donations, do be aware that what will happen with the way they're shown online is it will be the price of the ticket plus a donation, or the price for the ticket, because it being a donation means it does have to be given freely. So people will also have the option to choose to buy the ticket without the donation too.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to quickly share my screen just to give all of this lovely info about how you can get in touch with us. So thank you so much, Kyle, for a fabulous webinar. If there's anything there that you want to follow up with, there's the support center. You can also email or call us in the support training and consultancy team at support@spektrix.com, or giving us a call. We're available 10 till 6 Monday to Friday, and 9 till 1 on Saturdays, and then 10 a.m. till 9 p.m. 7 days a week in case of an emergency. So if it is Sunday afternoon and you've got a show going in and you're having some problems, then you can feel free to call us then with those emergencies too. As I said, we'll be sending around a recording of this. So thank you so much for joining us today. We will send that on, as well as the links to those articles, in good time after this. So thank you so much once again, and thank you again, Kyle, for all of your presenting.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day,
Bye
everyone. Bye.